you check the children? Show a little match sometimes.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Sometimes that is better.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the horror show. I'm Cecil, Laird, and if you'll notice, my little Lovecraftian octopi over there are not showing anything anymore. The keys have disappeared, and the reason for that is I think it's time to do an updated key collection video for my Locke Key replica keys. So not long ago, I think maybe 4 months ago or something like that, I did a video that was it was an unboxing that was Locke Key focused, where I got, I think, like 7 or 8 keys from this collection, and I began it because I've been a fan of the Locke Key series for a very long time. I got the books right here. I was very excited about the series coming out, and I have been collecting these keys because I'm a big fan of the books themselves. Now, this is what the key collection looks like now. I have 15 different keys. Now, in my unboxing, I hadn't looked closely enough, and I actually mispronounced the maker of the keys' names. So it is actually Skeleton Crew. The maker is Israel Skeleton, and Skeleton Crew Studio is the website where you can go and get yourself some of these keys. But I'm going to show these off, and I'm going to try and cut to footage, brief glimpses of the Netflix show, and even panels from the comic book where each of these keys appears. So let's get into it and let's have some fun. So I'm going to try and go in a somewhat chronological order here, but I'm going to follow the order of the comic book appearances, okay? Because most of these appear in the comics. There's only one of these that I have that doesn't appear in the comics, but it doesn't appear in the show either, so it doesn't really matter. And then there were, I think, two keys that I recognize that I can think of offhand that were in the show that are not in the comics that I'm hoping Skeleton is going to put out at some point. But I'm going to start off with the first one, which is the Ghost Key. So we've already used this in a couple of thumbnails. The thumbnail for the Locke Key first season review, Fuego was holding this. That's why he was transparent, because he was a ghost in it. But this is what it looks like. It's got that skull head, skull face, and then the loops, and on the I can't quite tell. My eyes are not as good as they should be. It looks like it's an upside down cross. Looks like it's an upside down cross right underneath the skull there. Hopefully it's available to see in that footage, but this is what it looks like. And then the actual, I'm not sure what these parts of the key are called. Someone will tell me in the comments down below, but I'll just call that the actual the male part of the key, because it's inserted into the female lock portion. So the male part of the key looks like that, and it's a really cool key. This is, of course, the key that Bodhi uses to put into the dark door that opens to the outside, and when you step through, his body drops down dead, but he becomes a ghost, and he can fly anywhere he wants to, but he's stuck as a ghost unless he can get back through the door before someone closes it. But that's what that key looks like, and that happens in both the comic and the show. So that's a really cool key to have right there. The next one I'm going to go to is, I think the next one that they actually introduced was the Anywhere Key. Because Bodhi had the Ghost Key, but the Anywhere Key was the first key that Dodge was trying to get Bodhi to bring to him. And this is the key that was actually inside Kinsey's bracelet in both the comic and the TV show. So it's inside Kinsey's bracelet. I can't remember who gets it out in the comic offhand, but it's Bodhi in the show. That's the most fresh. But in the bracelet, it's basically bent like this. I don't want to bend it too far because I don't want to ruin it. But there's something that happens that it then springs out, and you can pull the key away from the bracelet. In the comic, it looks like it just pops right out, but in the show, Bodhi has to disassemble the bracelet a little bit. But it also is referred to in both the comic and the show as a key with rings. I'm going to put it on my forehead so you can see what I'm talking about. A key with rings attached to other rings. and it looks like it's 6 rings, 7 rings total if you include the big ring there, but 8 if you include this little ring there as well. So yeah, that is what the Anywhere key looks like. And it's funny, when I first unboxed this, I was like, wow, that's a really thin, kind of chintzy looking key. I don't know what happened with that. And it's because I hadn't read the comic in so long, I'd forgotten that it's actually meant to go inside of a bracelet as well. Now on the show, it definitely looks a little bit thicker than this one does, but this kind of makes more sense to me. So that's the Anywhere key. Next up, we've got the Wellhouse key. I'm going to talk about this one. This is the one that I can't remember who has it in the comic offhand, but I'll show you, of course, panels. But in the show, Ellie is the one that has it. She's the one that goes to try and find Dodge or Lucas in the well house at some point. And this is the Wellhouse key. So you can see it's got the... it's funny, too, because someone mistakes this for the Anywhere key because they're told that it's rings attached to rings. And so they think it's this key, but obviously that's the wrong rings attached to rings. This is meant to represent the well, obviously, so it's the Wellhouse key. And that's what that looks like. That's what the male part looks like there. But it's a really cool, solid ring, or solid key, rather. Or, I'm sorry, I call it the Wellhouse key. It's officially titled the Echo key. Man, will I get crap if I don't mention that. I mean, it opens the well house, but it's called the Echo key. So I guess what that means is there's a key that would open the well house also, like a master key, but if you open it with the Echo key, then you can call the echo of the person that you know that's dead. So I guess I should say that there may be some minor spoilers. They haven't used these keys all of these ways in the show yet, but you might hear what they actually do based on what they've done in the comics. But I'll be careful about spoiling actual events. So yeah. Next up, we're going to go with this one, which is the one everyone saw very rapidly, which is the head key. And this is a really cool key. Now, in the show, the head key is much more three-dimensional and much less polished, but this is very pretty accurate to the actual comic book head key. And you can see one of the male prongs here actually has a little circle inside there. I'm not sure what that is intended to represent either. But nonetheless, that is what the head key looks like, and it is pretty gorgeous. But yeah, it really represents more the comic book version. I am hoping that the Skeleton crew will put out a show version, but they've already have 2 versions of this. The more flat, less flashy version, which is actually going to be surprising someone in a boogie box this month. But yeah, that is that one, and I hope they do the 3D one as well. So the next key I'm going to go to, I believe, I'm going to go to this one, which is in both the show and the comics. I'm surprised they already used it in the show because it wasn't used until the back, because there's 6 volumes, 6 main volumes of the comic books, and the comics, the first 3 volumes were what were essentially utilized in this first season. So we have a whole nother 3 volumes, so we get at least 1 more season out of it, and they did different enough stuff in this first season that they could technically drag it out longer as well. But one of the keys that they did use was the music box key. So I really like this one because it's got I'm not a musician, so I don't remember what this symbol is called. Please comment down below if you know. And then of course the male piece here is a bunch of notes as well, so I think that's pretty cool too. So the music box key is one of the smaller ones, but as you saw in the show, it has a tremendous effect if you're using it. So yeah, just be careful, don't use it for the wrong reasons. Again, I'm trying not to spoil everything about these keys, but nonetheless, moving along, I think I might be up to the second to last key that was actually used in the show. So this one, however, had some changes made to it. And this is kind of interesting. So in the comics, Dodge, who is originally a female, whom in the show you see can kind of change that using what they call the identity key. There is no identity key in the comics. Well, the one that they show, the identity key that they use in the show, is actually called the skin key in the comic books. But in the comics, they had this, which was the gender key. So this is what Dodge used to switch between being a boy and a girl, but they looked essentially the same, just with female features and male features. So that's what's different. The identity key can actually change the way you look, and that's kind of what the skin key did. The skin key just literally changed your skin color, so you could become a different race if you wanted to. But yeah, this was the gender key, which is now essentially the identity key. But that's what that looks like, and that's what the male end looks like there. So you can kind of see one of the faces is a male, one of the faces is a female. So it's a pretty cool little key. Yeah, that's the gender key, though. It's not the identity key, it's the gender key. Now, next, the last one here that I'm going to show is one that's definitely been in the show and in the comics, but it's one of the later keys to show up, and then I still have, looks like 8 more keys that are from the comics that haven't yet made it into the show. And this one is the Omega Key. So yes, this is one that definitely comes into play later in the season. I won't say what it does, but it is of great importance, and you can see the whole thing, what it looks like there with the male end. But this is what opens what's called the Black Door. I won't say why, how, or what that means. You need to watch the show and find out, but that is what the Omega Key looks like. And this is one of the more solid keys. I love it because all of the keys are constructed really cool, but they do still easily function as keys. Very much so. Very much so. I mean, even the head key, it's like, I mean, they're so cool. The designs, Israel Skeleton did such a good job with these keys. It's really, really impressive. So next I'm going to go ahead and go into the keys that are from the actual books. So these might be considered spoilers for any of those of you that watch the show that don't necessarily want to have spoiled what keys are coming that you haven't seen yet. Then, you know, you can switch off now. But if you're curious, I'm not going to tell you in what context they're used, but I think it's good that you see them because they're really cool and you can get your hands on them at Skeleton Crew Studios right now. So now, again, before I do these, there were 2 keys that were in the show that did not appear in the comics, so they have not been made yet. One is the Flower Key, and that was used at a particular point in the show. I'm going to try and pull up footage here so you guys can kind of at least see what it looks like. But yes, that key has not been made by Skeleton yet. And then the other one is the Flame Key. The Flame Key is used heavily in the show, but it is not at all in the comics. And if you even started the show, you saw the Flame Key. So I'm not spoiling anything there, but it is an aggressive key. It can cause a lot of damage, and it has not been made yet, but I'm really excited for when they make it because they have to. I want to get my hands on a Flame Key. It looks really, really cool. So the rest of these keys, again, are just from the comics, but I'm going to get into them now. Now, one of them is similar to the Flower Key, but it's not the Flower Key, although it might be kind of the version of this. This is called the Thorn Key. So you can see here that it is a flower, but it's got the thorns on the stems for the male end here. And what this was used for in the comics was to control vines, and it was used in an attack. Most of these keys you're going to see now were used in attacks by the Dark Lady, aka Dodge, and the shadow creatures. But this would whip out vines with thorns on them, and it would attack the kids. And then it showed an aftermath picture where they're like at school and they're like, we're fine, but they've got scratches all over themselves. It's because Dodge was using this Thorn Key to control plants in order to attack them. Now, in the show, the Flower Key does raise memories out of the ground, but we also see in a film that Kinsey and Scott have made, or, you know, the Savini squad have made, where Kinsey's being pulled away by some vines. So I think that might be the Flower Key, which is essentially the Thorn Key here. So I'm guessing that was the replacement for it. If not, you know, interesting. Maybe they found the Thorn Key off, or it does a very similar thing to the Flower Key, but I'm guessing that's the Flower Key is what they were using for that vine scene, because that's what the Thorn Key did in the comics. So that's that right there, and this is the special Legacy Edition. Skeleton has on his site a couple of versions. You can do there's Legacy Editions and then regular editions. I don't know if all of them come with this pinkish flower hue, but yeah. So this is the one that I got, but it's really cute. So I really like it. Next is this key here. This is one that's used through a couple of different points, but they actually hint to this definitely being in the show. This is what's called the Hercules Key. Now, this is basically a key that looks like a giant sword because it actually comes as a part of a necklace. So you've noticed in the show, if you watched it, that some keys are a part of other things. So there's the Anywhere Key, which was a part of the bracelet, right? There was the Crown Key, the Crown of Shadows Key, which goes as a part of the crown. And then there's the Hercules Key, which actually goes as a part of a necklace that when you put it on, you basically become the Rock. You become a big hulking version of yourself and super strong. You're not a giant or anything, but you're just the strongest version of yourself that you can be. But look at how gorgeous this one is specifically. I love the design of this key, and that male end is just the end of the sword. It's just so beautiful. This is one of my favorite of the Skeleton Crew keys. I absolutely love this one, and it's got some heft. I mean, this is not a light key. It's really awesome. I dig the hell out of it. I'm trying to do the balance thing, but yeah, there you go. It is a weighty key. So that is the Hercules Key right there. Again, not in the show yet, but one of the things it was used for in the comics was set up in the show. In the comics, Ty ends up wearing it for one of his hockey games after he's tired of being beat up by a particular person on an opposite team. And in the show, we see that Ty sees that there's one guy on the opposite team that's beating everyone's ass. And they're like, oh, that guy's the bully kind of thing. And I think they're setting up the Ty using the Hercules Key in season 2, hopefully. That's my guess. So, and moving on, we have the Animal Key. Now, this plays a pivotal role in the series. I'm not going to say how, but keys make things different. And this is an animal key, so think about that. It can make things different, and this is an animal key. But nonetheless, look at the prettiness of this key. So yes, there's things that can become animals. It's pretty cool, and look at, I mean, just this is so gorgeous. This is the first time I'm really examining the actual design of these and the male ends and everything. I mean, look at how beautiful the design of this is. All of the carvings on the side. I mean, that's just gorgeous. It's almost like a totem pole, right? It's like a totem. So it represents kind of different animals all the way up. So I don't know. I dig the hell out of this. I love this animal key. So that's the animal key right there. We've got 5 left here. We got another key here that is one that's used very briefly, and this is the Angel Key. And this one is used in the comics. I'm not sure if they're going to include this in the show because it's going to add some super expensive effects, if so. But basically this goes along with a harness. Again, a lot of the keys go with things, and so there is a harness with angel wings somewhere, and when you put it on and put this key in the back, so it's in the center of your back, you have this sticking out. Just imagine it's in my back here. This sticks out, but doing that, putting on the harness and putting the key in, allows you to fly with the wings. So you're able to fly around like an angel, and in the comic, it's usually Kinsey that's doing this. And it's got one of my favorite panels in the whole book is her using this key, just flying carefree all the way above Lovecraft, Massachusetts, which again, in the show, it's Matheson, Massachusetts, but in the comic, it's Lovecraft, Massachusetts. It's all political. No, it's not political. It's just as Joe Hill found out more about Lovecraft's personal history, he didn't want to idolize him quite as much, so he changed it to Matheson because he respects that writer more. So, moving on here, this is the Harlequin Key. Now, this one is another one that was used in an attack by Dodge, I believe. I can't remember exactly what this one does, to be honest with you. It was only shown, if I'm not mistaken, it was only shown for one scene in the entire book. But nonetheless, It is called the Harlequin Key, and I think there's actually a color legacy version of this at some point that they put out, but I didn't get it, so if they re-release it, I will get it at that point. But this is what this looks like. It's a nice little jester. After just watching Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of Harley Quinn, I like having a Harlequin Key. As you can see, it's got the diamonds down the center as well, just like Harley Quinn. So I like it. It's not meant to be a nod to actual Harley Quinn, but it is a Harlequin, and she's modeled after Harlequins, so this is the same thing. So I like it. 2 keys left that belong in the series and 1 that doesn't. So the next one I'm going to show you is probably my favorite key that Skeleton has put out. I think there's still some of these left on his site, and I very much recommend this one, but again, it hasn't been touched on in the show, and I don't know if they'll touch on it on the show. I think they should, because it allowed for some of the best scenes in the comic book when we saw it, but in the show, or in the comic, there is a grandfather clock that you can use this key on, and this is called the Time Shift Key. And as you can see, it's an hourglass. And this is a fully 3-dimensional hourglass key. It's not flat like the Anywhere key. It's got some heft to it. And then it's got the really beautiful, ornate male end there. I mean, look at this over here. It's just gorgeous. This is definitely my favorite key. And then this is also the key that allows for the kids to find out the history of the Locke family. So when you plug this into the grandfather clock, you can turn it, set it like the Back to the Future DeLorean. You can set the clock to any time before that and use this key to go back in time and watch the events in a non-corporeal form when no one notices you, but you can watch events from the past take place by using this time shift key. So it's a really amazing key, and its functionality is really cool. In the comics, not sure if they're going to do it in the show because it opens up a couple of cans of worms, but it's still a really tremendous key. Next is the last key that I'm going to show you that I have that is in the show or the comics. This is in the comics. It will be in the show, I guarantee you. So I'm not going to tell you what it does, but you saw the Omega key, and this here is the Alpha key. I'm not going to tell you how it comes into play or why, but I'll just tell you it's a very, very important key, and it is made with specific purpose. It's a little bit thin. It's one of the thinner keys, but there's a reason why. There wasn't an abundance of material when it was made, and it was made sort of quickly, but for good reason. And look at, I mean, the end is just, it's so gorgeous. It almost looks kind of like a homemade piece, if you will. Those of you that read the comics, you know what I'm talking about. I'm sweating because it's hot in my house. But yeah, this is the Alpha key, and it is gorgeous. Lastly is a key that Skeleton made that is funny because the only reason I think he made it is because there was a loose tie-in from another show that was based on one of his properties from earlier in 2019. So they also made a show besides Locke and Key called Nosferatu. Zachary Quinto played the main guy, Charlie Manx, the main bad guy in Nosferatu, which was an adaptation of Joe Hill's book by the same name, which was about a vampire that has lived forever, but a different kind of vampire. He feeds on the life essence of children that he kidnaps to take to a place that he calls Christmasland. And it's essentially a fun park, an amusement park that is themed all about Christmas. So that is Charlie Manx's ultimate plan, and when he gets to Christmasland, only he can enter, and he's got a key to it. And so Skeleton made the Christmasland key, and they did not make this tag. I made this tag because I wanted to have a tag to match all of the other tags that I've been showing you. So these were all from Locke and Key. This is technically from Nosferatu, so I put the Nosferatu logo on there, and it's the Christmasland key, so I did it in red and green. But this is what it looks like. It's just a beautiful silver candy cane that would open this door, the gate rather, to Christmasland. In other words, your doom. Be you an adult or a child, it is going to be the death of you, and that's what the male end looks like there. So that is the Christmasland key. It is gorgeous. All of these keys are gorgeous, you guys. I highly, highly, highly recommend if you have some disposable income, because I'll tell you, these keys range anywhere from about $28 to about $40, depending on which one you buy. So there are some times where he has deals that he bundles keys, and right now I know for a fact that they just offered a new thing that I'm tempted to get, even though I already have the key. But you can order the Ghost Key right now, and it comes in a little box that represents the Ghost Key. So I think they're going to start releasing boxes for each of the keys, so you can have sort of a little thing. I stuck with the octopi to display them because it's just like hanging keys on a key ring and Lovecraft tie-in, and they all look good hanging from there. And you know, anyway, that's what I'm doing, but you guys are free to display them however you want. But I do recommend you check them out, especially if you liked either the comic series or the Netflix series as much as we did. So yeah, check them out. I'm gonna put a link to the Skeleton website in the description box. This is not a paid promotion. I literally have bought every single one of these keys, but they're so nice and I'm so happy with them that if you guys like the series as much as I do, I think it's very much worth your money and effort to pick up whichever keys really tickle your fancy. And if you're a completionist like me, then yeah, prepare to invest a little bit. But honestly, it's so cool having them around, and they're not easily broken. Maybe that anywhere key is a little bit risky, so keep that out of the reach of kids. But even the kids can take a look at these keys and play around with them. I'm guessing some of you guys have watched this with your families, and some of these keys would be fun. You know, imagine you have a kid that would love to go play with a ghost key just on one of your doors and pretend like he's a ghost floating around. I mean, yeah, it might get annoying, but how fun would that be for him? You know what I mean? So that might be worth it for some of you guys. But I think even as a collector, if you enjoy this stuff, they're very worthwhile as a collection. So thank you guys very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, click the like button. Keep in mind, we reviewed all 6 volumes plus the 4 one-shots of the series in a 7th episode of the Locke Key comics. Those are all, I think episode 1 and 2 are out by the time you see this, but 3, 4, 5, and 6 and 7 are coming after that, as well as an interview with Jay Photos, the colorist of the series, and hopefully we can get an interview with Gabriel Rodriguez, the actual artist of the series. He responded to us on Twitter, so hopefully he'll still be down for that. But that's going to do it for this episode. I appreciate you guys bearing with all this Locke Key coverage, but if you don't think it's very horror based on the Netflix series, trust me, read the comics. It is horror. It is way, way dark and gory at times, and it is really, really awesome, but it's still this storyline. So one of the nice things about that Netflix show is you can appreciate it on a whole different level from the comics, but knowing it's still the same story. It's just done differently. It's more family friendly. Yes, you can watch it with kids, but it doesn't lose all of its fangs. Let us know in the comments down below what you think of these keys. Are you tempted to get any of them? Did you like the series, either the comic series or the Netflix series? Let me know in those comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, click the like button and subscribe to make sure you don't miss more of that coverage coming at you. But until next time, I've been Cecil Laird, and remember guys, stay scared.